Hello and welcome to the Uprising Show. And today I have a very special guest with a very good experience in the healthcare world. And I have Rob Cohen with me. Rob, take a minute or two to introduce yourself in your own words, please.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation. I'm the CEO of Livara Health. I have been here a little over a year, been in value-based care for 15 years, in healthcare for over 20 years. And as we were discussing before, I'm all in on healthcare. I've done work with providers, worked with payers, worked with employers, worked for payers. Has a pretty varied experience, and just love what I do every day, just because of the mission orientation, and just looking forward to what we can accomplish here at Livara.
Awesome. Before we go into your professional side, how about we go back in time and tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you were born and raised, and were you an entrepreneurial kid with lemonade stands? Is any of your parents an entrepreneur?
Sure, I was born and raised in Nashville, which has become one of the centers of the healthcare universe here. But when I grew up, was not that way, and is now a pretty vibrant city, and was also not quite that way when I grew up. My parents were not entrepreneurs. My dad was a dentist. He started his own practice. That's somewhat entrepreneurial, right? But a little bit different. And so I didn't necessarily get the entrepreneurial spirit there. I think I've always just enjoyed challenges. I've always enjoyed difficult problems, strategy. Grew up playing a lot of strategy games, right? Video games, computer games, and just I think really enjoyed kind of that quest from that experience.
Wonderful. And is like you've been especially in leadership roles across many different organizations, so I guess the first question is where it started, what originally drew you into healthcare industry, and how has your passion for it evolved over time? Because it's a I always say, like, to investors I always say you need a heart in healthcare, and to the people I say you need a heart because sometimes it's demoralizing. So for both reasons, so tell me about your journey into how you got into healthcare and how it has evolved for you.
Sure, I'm a firm believer that you can try to plan your career, but it's not going to work out that way. And I'm an example of that. I fell into healthcare. I don't know that originally intentionally got into healthcare. I was in business school and was approached by a former partner of mine at a company we started about a project he had been engaged to work on, and he'd been engaged by WellPoint. This was pre-Anthem merger WellPoint, and it was a bit of a entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial venture in an incubator they had, and he asked me to do some work on it while I was in school. Basically, a project to define a concept for them and a strategy. And so we did that together, and we presented it to the leadership, and they liked it, and they asked us to go build it. And so that's what I did coming out of business school. I went and built a new company for WellPoint, and that was in sort of the early days of consumer-directed healthcare, when that was the answer to the runaway costs of healthcare, right? It kind of shift the incentives to the consumers, and everything else will be okay. And it helps, but it certainly doesn't solve all the problem. And that was the beginning of my journey in healthcare. And I think once I got in it, I recognized the challenges that it presented, how much opportunity there is in it to improve lives, how much opportunity there is in it to innovate, and just kind of fell in love with it. And ever since I've been in it, I think every year my passion for it grows because your experience grows. And then I got into value-based care in sort of the 2009 time frame, and shifting to that, you reduce costs really by improving patient outcomes and improving patient experience, and you get exposed to those poor patient experiences through the work. But then you get older, and your parents get older, and then you get even more experience as a caregiver and as a family member of someone who goes through the healthcare system, right? And you see wow, man, it is, he just continues to emphasize the need. And so to be, involved in mission oriented companies that really do try to change lives and improve lives just continues to be an energizing force when you wake up every day.
Where do you see value-based care going? Because I mission-wise, it looks on paper still very strong concept, and I feel like that's the answer to it. But while on the ground implementation wise it's not getting where we want it to be, right? So I always have two camps I meet. One is so, like amp about it, like this is what it is, and the other camp is just like this is going to fall flat and not going to work out. Where I'm sure you are on which side that I know, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
It's certainly so. I'm certainly on the side you think I'm on, and not just because I'm in it. I don't believe it certainly has. I would say evolved and progressed more slowly than anyone would like, and that is a function of really the inherent need of CMS, because CMS creates these initiatives, right? It starts with CMS and then it flows down to the private plans. And CMS has a bunch of different models out there trying to address a bunch of different challenges. But CMS has to go somewhat slowly because it's such a disruption to the way that the traditional healthcare system focus or operates. And so they have to proceed slowly. And as long as for certain organizations, the vast majority of your financial prosperity and your financial outcomes are still tied to fee for service medicine, then of course value based is going to proceed more slowly. But we see that inch along every year, right? To be more on the value based side of things. And so the progress is there. It's just really, really slow. I think if you look in the future, you'd say, how do we break down the barriers, continue to break down the barriers and move faster? And I think there are a few things that we can do. One is the continued collaboration between companies like ours and plans, certainly other providers, certainly to really come together to impact, to get patients involved in value-based care models, and then to maximize the efficiency and optimize those models, I think is one key. A second key, and one of the barriers, is that patients basically sign up for health plans on an annual basis, whether that's a Medicare plan or whether that's an employer. They switch employers; they could be on a different plan, and so as long as plans have this short-term or potentially short-term relationship with individuals, it's really tough for them to invest in the long-term health of an individual. And that value may accrue to another plan. If we could ever get to a place where we solve some of that issue, that would help. That would help tremendously as well. And then just the continued advancement of technology and the integration of technology in our lives really does create an opportunity to continue to surround the patient with those supportive resources that are so key to these value-based models. And now that they're in your pocket at all times, that really does open up a lot of opportunities to help patients.
Interesting. Yeah, I always felt that uh, especially on the provider side, it's always like there is upfront investment, and that's scary for providers. Like, oh, it's like I have to put all those things upfront and then paid get later, and who knows, right? Like, so there is a little bit of trust element to that. So
Mhm.
I think I would say the third thing is like, how do we have that kind of trust that, hey, this investment is a sure shot path. You will get paid. It's at least de-risk the efforts, right? So it's but you're right. Like it's the second point is that you mentioned, like the consumer on the other end is on year basis, so it kind of makes everything super complex just
Mhm.
how to implement it. Very essential. Actually, the point that I never thought of, this is really interesting to me. Now to your current company, Livara. So you joined almost a year ago now. And what is that attracted the most to the company for you personally? And also, then tell us a little bit about what specific problem does it solve today, and how is it approaching that problem different from others in the space?
Sure, sure. So we are a value-based musculoskeletal management organization and provide solutions around that. What attracted me to the company initially and really immediately was we are this interesting mix of sort of an entrepreneurial venture and a young company, but we've actually been around for a long time. And the value of how long we've been around is that we have figured out and proven the clinical model with some really premier organizations. So with Scripps and with Sharp and with Providence and some other really premier organizations, we have delivered results. Then we have done multi-year claims-based studies on tens of thousands of patients or members in Medicare and in commercial, and we've shown dramatic savings in musculoskeletal spend. And so when I saw this opportunity to come in and say, okay, I'm going to get in on a company that actually, from a growth standpoint and from a size standpoint, is pretty small and pretty young, but I can bring to the market these outcomes and this proof of what we're capable of. And of course, it convinces me that we're capable of it. Then I think we have something pretty special and something pretty powerful. And that's what really attracted me to the company. In terms of the problem we solve, broadly, musculoskeletal spend is one of the top two or three spend categories in pretty much every population in America, and it's growing faster than most categories. Around $400 billion dollars a year is the spend on musculoskeletal, and it's got some really interesting dynamics to it. One is that it is growing faster than many of the other categories. Two is that much of the care that's provided is unnecessary. Surgeries, unnecessary surgeries, a large proportion of lumbar spine fusions are unnecessary. Large proportion of total knee replacements are unnecessary. And there are conservative options that can help patients avoid those surgeries. And then on top of it, on top of this spend and this unnecessary care, about half of patients are unhappy with the outcomes of their interventions. And so you have this worst possible outcome, which is it's expensive, it causes all this pain and rehab and suffering, and it doesn't help the patient. And so and that's not to say there isn't certainly a time for surgery, plenty of it, right? And a time when it is appropriate and it does help patients. And so what we're interested in doing is making sure that the patient gets the optimal intervention for what they are suffering from, whether that be surgery or a more conservative path. And we provide a very holistic solution where we can partner with a risk-bearing provider or a plan. Those are our two major target segments. And we can basically accept referrals or identify the patients that are suffering from musculoskeletal issues that could benefit from our help, enroll them in our program, and we can be the front door to that MSK care. And so traditionally, PCPs, for example, are not well trained on diagnosing MSK issues. And so it leads to a situation where they may prescribe physical therapy, they may send the patient to an orthopedic surgeon, they may get an MRI, they may just try a painkiller. There are all sorts of different perspectives, but we can take a patient in, we can connect them to an appropriate clinician on our team, all the way from a surgeon to a PM&R, a physical medicine and rehab doctor, to a PT, to an athletic trainer, assess them, diagnose them, and then either enroll them in our virtual program, which is a conservative care program that addresses both their physical and psychosocial needs around PT and exercise and sleep and nutrition and anxiety and all sorts of things. Or if we do decide that they really do need to see a specialist in their local community or local market, we can actually navigate them to a high performing specialist. We form high performing networks in the markets we're in, and we can navigate them there and get them the care they need, and then continue to provide sort of that coordination and supporting effort. And so it really is a holistic solution. And because it's so holistic and so comprehensive and so multidisciplinary, we're able to take risk. And so we actually take upside downside risk on total MSK spend.
Got
So
it.
that's a bit of a snapshot.
Interesting. And so as far as partnership is concerned, you're partnering with health plans, you're serving health plans, and you're also working with health systems and also with providers, large groups directly, or is it just health systems and health plans?
No, large groups directly as well. For example, risk-bearing provider groups that are delegated total cost of care risk would be an example. We do work with employers a bit, but certainly because of our focus on outcomes and on reducing costs, it fits very well with the providers and plans because we can actually subcapitate the musculoskeletal spend and really then go attack it and reduce it.
Got it. And this also means like you are recruiting on staff clinicians, physicians, providers on your side to run these programs. Is that what you're doing? Because you're also opening that.
So we have those clinicians on our side.
Yeah,
And then we also navigate to clinicians in the market to the
yeah.
extent it's indicated, right? So
Uh,
obviously we don't perform surgery. If we do assess that a patient is a good candidate for surgery, then we will navigate them to a surgeon.
yeah,
And the great thing for the surgeons is that they know that every patient they receive from us, we've already screened as a good surgical candidate.
right. Okay, that's great. So, and that's where the risk and the saving both comes there, right? Because that's where the first analysis from your end is going into, and it's highly qualified patient that really needs it. So checking both sides, savings as well as need of the patient. Only then it goes makes a referral for the further surgeries. That's how you're controlling also the costs on the other end, reducing.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. And
Yeah,
we are at risk for cost, and then obviously we have quality metrics that we're held to as well. And so it provides that complete balance of we're getting patients. We're not limiting care. We're getting patients the care they need.
got it. Okay, and is it? I guess it's more of like a slightly futuristic, but there is a little bit of impact that's happening in entire healthcare world is with the usage of GLP-1s, right? Like, and there is a behavior change happening in a good way. And the good way part of this is it's also impacting change on certain procedures going down, and its impacts on also goes on, the somebody might not need knee surgeries because they can keep a better weight control. Are you already seeing impact of this? I want to know from an insider expert view from you. And the second thing I want to hear is like, how are you looking at these progressions coming in next few years with this whole thing that's changing?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that reduction in BMI, weight loss, helps people experience with musculoskeletal issues. Certainly could be joint replacements. It could be other things. We don't prescribe GLP-1s. In that case, we would refer a patient to another solution or a physician that prescribes GLP-1s. But there's no question, and it's sort of long been known that reduction. And so, yes, to the extent patients do that, it either reduces the need for surgery or it improves the outcome of the surgery. Either one, and they're both great scenarios. And where do I see that going? I think to the extent that those types of solutions continue to progress, that's really, if you think about the holistic nature of our solution, and that we're not only providing these navigation services, we're not only providing this virtual PT and exercise, but we have these psychosocial programs. And because there is such a huge impact on musculoskeletal, from whether it either be weight loss could be one of them, your actually dietary habits could be one of them. Eating inflammatory foods or foods that are less inflammatory can have a big impact. And obviously, we all know that depression has a strong link to back pain. This is across the spectrum, and so we provide a portion of those interventions. So, for example, we provide guidance to patients on diet, on inflammation, on those sorts of things. And then when it's a need where we stop short of providing, such as prescribing a GLP-1, we're able to refer out. And so the more solutions and interventions that are available to us to refer out to, when it goes beyond the limit of what we provide, the better for the patient, the better for us, the better for our partners. Yeah, the better for everybody.
And just from the solution as you're offering, and there is obviously a lot of is virtual monitoring. So the tech and everything is your own tech companies, or is it more like you're partnering with some company there?
So the virtual part of it is ours. So for example, the virtual exercise and PT is ours. It's our tech, it's our platform that patients use to watch their exercises and do their exercises and all of those sorts of things. Yes, and you know, computer vision enabled, so we know how many reps they're doing and they're doing the right angle and all of those sorts of things.
Got it. And typically, when you starts working with a health plan, how long does it take to get them up and running with your programs?
It depends on the model they want from us because we do, you know, we really kind of fit our solution into their needs. And some customers have broader needs than others. Some have more gaps than others. What I would say is that we have, if you thought about two main models, almost a virtual only model where you're doing less of the in-market navigation and so on and so forth. That's the part that takes the longest to set up because we're forming those high performing networks and those sorts of things. And you know that's probably a 90-day time frame. And if we're not doing that aspect of the solution, then we can get up and running very, very quickly.
Yeah, okay. 90 days is still good. You know, I've been into healthcare. I know how long it takes for especially every program with health plans and health systems. Okay, that's good. And let's talk about a little bit about your challenges, especially while you're scaling the org, especially for the time that you've spent with it. Um, I guess the question is more from CEO's perspective. What are your biggest challenges that you feel like that's keeping you up in the night at the moment?
Yeah. Look, obviously, one thing that's common to all sort of companies like ours or healthcare, health tech companies is just, you know, sales cycles with payers and with certain providers can be long. And so this is a big problem for these folks. There's huge interest across the market, but yet it can still take a long, long time to make a sale, right? And then get your solution up and running. And so obviously that's something you have to plan for. And you have to plan for from a resource planning perspective, from a cash management perspective, from all of those sorts of things. So that's certainly one. There are you know macro issues obviously that affect businesses like ours. What's happening with Medicare Advantage, right? What's happening with the different you know rules around Medicare Advantage and those sorts of things? What's happening with CMS or CMMI around new value-based models? Those things all impact us, and so we keep close tabs on those things and plan for those things. Those are a couple big ones, and then all young companies are always just planning for the utilization of limited resources. Where do I best invest? Right? I have these needs. I can't invest in all of those needs today. So, you know, what's the order? What's the priority? And where do I place my investment is something that all young companies have to go through. And I think a common lesson is, you know, be decisive, make quick decisions, right? I think, a decision is better than no decision, and then you can pivot. And so that's kind of the what we operate by, and we make the best decision we can with the information we have.
Okay, that's um, sometimes I feel like in healthcare there are barriers to making fast decisions, especially when you're dealing with you know, these are larger organizations like your sales cycle, right? That's like how it works, right? And it's so I'm sure there is this bargain that you go through. Certain decisions you can make fast on your own, and then the others just take time. Um, it's in your experience, especially on the, I guess, more on the sales and marketing side. How are you seeing the company acquiring customers today, and things that might have worked and things that haven't worked? Could you talk about those things a little bit?
Yeah, I would say we acquire customers the good old fashioned way, hard work, right? Hard work and hustle. And this, like I said before, this is a common problem for if not every healthcare organization, almost every healthcare organization. Some are more aware of it than others, and some are ready to act faster than others. And so, really, you know, the sales process is about identifying who recognizes the problem the earliest, because the others you have to educate, so it takes a little longer, and that's okay. But in terms of how you predict the order of things, and then sort of who's ready to act, and who other people may have other priorities, and even in the world of value-based specialty care, right? A lot of people may say, well, we know that oncology, cardiology, and MSK are my biggest issues, and they might decide to tackle one before the other, right? MSK is first and then is oncology. And another one might say, I'm doing oncology now and then I'm going to get to MSK. And so, it's working through that process and understanding it. But our job is to get out there and make sure that people are aware of what an impact this is currently having on their organization and on their patients, and our ability to help them and our ability to impact it and change it, and then really convince them that they can't afford not to work with us, is really the best way to say it. So there's no magic. Hit the streets, have the conversations, have the data, show the proof, both the data that it's a problem, and the proof that we have that we can help. And I think those are the keys.
And you are going to conferences and trade shows to get in front of your target segments. Any trade shows or specific conferences that you've been to or you're planning to go to?
Sure. I mean, we'll hit the major ones. We'll be at Health here, HLTH here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
I was at Health Evolution last week, was the last week. Some of the other ones, Digital Health New York, I was at this year. The common ones you would think of, were at most of those. And the key to those, though, are really about doing your pre-work, right? There's so much value in those if you line up the conversations and can be face to face with people you'd like to talk to. And so do your pre-work, get those meetings set up so you make sure you take advantage of it.
Yep. Um, it's it's funny, like in healthcare specifically, and I've been doing fractional CMO work for quite a few years now, and especially advising early stage companies on go to market strategies. And whenever I speak to founders, they're always looking for some kind of like a magic bullet, and I give pretty much the same boring answer how you did, like like, hey, there are channels. Everybody has to run through this playbook. Rest is all being diligent in doing all these things, right? So there's no magic bullet. Of course, there is. There are ways of creative ways of doing things. That's what it is. But at the end of the day, it's getting in front of your buyers and be ready, like how you say, be prepared before you meet them, and that's kind of what it is. The goal is. So I just want to echo this sentiment again to listeners that hey, there is no like magic bullet at the end. You got to do the hard things. That's what I say. It's a hard job, and especially for sales and marketing, especially in healthcare world. So yeah, shout out to all the folks who do this work. All right, great. So let's talk about a little bit about your traction as a company, where you stand, and are you also in fundraising, or give us a little bit of insight how far you've grown, and are you fundraising or planning to fundraise?
Yeah, we're not fundraising right now. I would expect we will be in the not too distant future. We just have a ton of opportunities ahead of us and need the capital to make sure we take advantage of all those opportunities.
Okay, and looking ahead a little bit long term, 5 years from now, where do you see the company? Like, what's like the vision you all are chasing right now?
Well, I certainly believe in focus, and so the vision we're chasing right now is let's get our solution out to as many people as we can and as far and wide as we can, because we can make a big impact, and we can help a lot of people, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So, continue to do that, while obviously we're always refining. We're always adding capabilities and refining the capabilities we do have. And obviously technology always offers the ability to do that. So I believe that this business, uh, there's a human component to this business, right? And I think for the foreseeable future, there will be. And it's just about, are there areas that you can automate? And are there areas where you can take advantage of technology? Yes, absolutely. And we continue to do that. But there's always a human component to it as well. and just refining both the technology and those human interactions. And so in 5 years, what I would see is that we have made a sizable, captured a sizable part of the MSK market from this perspective, and made a sizable dent in spend, helped a lot of people, and then started to look at or made progress on, hey, how does that start to bleed into other areas as well? And how do we view this, as you started off the conversation, this total value-based care picture? How are we as companies all coming together to make sure we're advancing together? So whether it's right kidney care, oncology, cardiology, MSK, obviously sort of the primary care led models, we've got to be working together. And that's something we strive to do today when we work with folks, is to make sure we're integrated with everything going on. But that's got to continue to evolve over the next 5 years so that patients are getting a seamless, it's all about the patient experience, right? And so patients are getting a seamless experience, not feeling like they're dealing with four different vendors, because a lot of patients have three different conditions, right? And so, how do you make it seamless for them?
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. So it's more looking a comprehensive picture of value-based care and see wherever areas or specialties you can expand to, either by treatment or by specialty. You want to make sure that you are expanding your services there. Okay, that's
Right.
good. And is there any certain segments or geographies, for that matter, where you're seeing like, oh, you know what, this is kind of we see it's working for us or working faster than others in the market? There is any pattern or any signal that you're able to pick up?
Well, our origins are in California, and we all know that California is its own animal when it comes to healthcare, and when it comes to value-based care. And in many ways, they've truly been doing it for many, many, many years. And so that's where we got our start, and so that's its own animal. As far as the rest of the country goes, I don't know that I would identify one particular area that's moving faster than others. Certainly, as you look at different regions, you do see different trends in the MSK data, and certain areas being more expensive than others and those sorts of things. But there doesn't seem to be a regional aspect to it. It's just these micro climates, if you will, of MSK. And so, we're seeing opportunity everywhere, though.
Got it. And little bit about where do you see the next frontier in value-based care? And also, I want to touch upon a little bit about the tech side of it too, especially AI and everything coming. Do you see, in your views, if that would have significant impact outside of the everything else what we know, like especially through AI or outside of AI? What do you think is the next frontier for health system or health plans, especially in this realm of value-based healthcare?
No, I think it's two main aspects. One is, and I mentioned this earlier, the continued coordination and collaboration among the different segments. So among plans, among the providers, with companies like ours. If we are tasked with helping a group of patients or attributed members from a health plan, it can make a world of difference if that health plan is invested with us in making sure those patients get to us and understand the value of our program, versus if we're on an island, right? It's harder to engage patients. It's harder to get patients to participate if they're not. And so, like, that's just an example of the way in which the collaboration of these different segments and these different entities needs to continue to progress, and I think will continue to progress. So I think that's one element of it. Technology is another element of it. AI is such a buzzword, but truly, to the extent that you can use generative AI to make the connections with patients more frequent, and in doing so more natural. So there's only so many times that one of our coaches, human coaches, can be reaching out to a patient, can be monitoring a patient, can be doing those sorts of things. If that's augmented by a digital yet human-like experience that is also reaching out to that patient, and almost on a much more micro analyzing a lot of different aspects of what's going on with that patient and able to identify the right times to reach out and with the right messages, I think that can make a huge impact. And so again, it's about so much of what's needed in healthcare is this coordination and making patients understand their path and what's happening. And to the extent that can be automated, brings just a world of difference. So I think it's that continued advancement of those sorts of technologies.
And it's somebody I was talking to, and they are building more like a membership system, their way of solving this problem of making sure patients have a seamless experience across the health system. And you got different treatments. Sometimes you end up with even different systems, right? Like health system, you have to go to another doctor, and they are solving this problem through something really interesting. They call it the membership model. Like they work with health systems to offer membership, and through that membership they're trying to collect data uh, beforehand, like what all other treatments that this health system can have it, and the patient doesn't have to go to elsewhere. So building loyalty with health system, but
Mm-hmm.
because this is a better experience, that's kind of their angle is. Do you see similar things on your end? Because it seems like you're kind of also improving that uh, the experience side, but also trying to make it seamless for patients, and that's a big part of what you're doing. Where do you see this? Do you see this things like that make a difference? Membership and patient experience things to make this patient experience better?
Yeah, I think we can be a participant in those models as well as a utilizer of those models. We can be the MSK solution that lives within those models and bring some of that, as I mentioned, multi-specialty coordination to patients, right? And at the same time, because we're doing this navigation and this referral or these referrals, then we can be a utilizer of models like that to say, yeah, we can offer you what you need. And if it's, we have a suite of partners basically around GLP-1 or clinical depression or any number of other things that are tied in with us, that are coordinated with us, integrated with us, and then it becomes a more seamless experience for the patient. So I think we play on both ends of that, and and it can be very powerful because yeah, every health system's got a my chart, right? And if you have three different doctors or three different health systems, you got to log into three my charts, and we know all the challenges, right? So yes, it can be a difference maker.
And more on your experience and your kind of like perspective of, especially for the fellow founders and CEOs out there in healthcare, uh, what advice would you give to them, especially who are looking to drive growth and innovation in this complex world of healthcare?
You've got to understand healthcare. You've got to understand the ins and outs, and you've got to fit into it. The notion of, I believe that the notion of coming into healthcare and disrupting healthcare, I don't use those terms so much, right? There are a lot of things that are working. There's just and many times poor coordination among the things that are working. That's part of the problem. And then of course there are some other problems in there as well. But you've got to understand, where are the problems, where are the gaps, where do I fit in, how do I work with the existing infrastructure, and how can I make all of this better? And in the process, you are making a major difference for patients. But I don't know if you're disrupting healthcare, right? Like I think those are very careful words, and so that's what I firmly believe. And I've kind of, as I said before, I have worked in almost every one of those environments, and so sort of understand those perspectives. And I believe understand how best to fit into those different models. And I think that's key. And not that you have to work in every one of them, but go get your education, real world education, and then fit into it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You are We are on episode 16 for this podcast, and you are the fourth founder, CEO slash CEO who has used exact same wording that we are not trying to disrupt it. We
Hmm.
are trying to make it work with the system, which I kind of like it because it is you're not going to disrupt the system. It's a big monster to disrupt itself, and so everybody who's trying to find ways are going to be crafty in that way, but also like to build thriving business and to make change. You got to start with what's there, and I think this point goes there that the notion of like it's too hard to disrupt, it's too big to disrupt, but you got to figure it out what exists and you got to make your solutions around it what is there. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's been interesting for me to throughout this journey as I'm speaking with people, especially in last 2 3 months specifically. So that's very
Interesting.
something that came up. Yeah, quite a message that's been seeing across the CEOs and founders. So that's good to hear. Well, this has been great. I like to end the show with rather personal or fun question. I like to call it a fun question. And the question is, um, tell us about a personal thing, and it could be anything that you feel is appropriate to share that no one in your personal circles know about it, and this is your chance to tell the world. What would that be?
Hmm. Um, let's see. I don't know that no one knows about it. A little fun fact. I spent several years, many years ago, as a private pilot, flying around Southern California, and just had a ton of fun. Ton of fun with the lessons, and then a ton of fun flying around LA and Santa Barbara and San Diego and the desert and all those areas. And so it was just a really great sort of adventurous, fun experience. And haven't been in an airplane in quite a while, and would kill myself if I tried to get in one right now. But it was a lot of fun while I did it.
Well, it's really interesting. When was it? How many years ago was this?
Yeah, I was in like 2000 to 2000, and for several years beyond, but I think I took lessons around 99, 2000. So it's been a while.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, was the intention to go into flying as a profession, or was it more like hobby?
Yeah, no, never was pursuing any sort of professional career. Just hobby, just something fun to do. And it's an expensive hobby, as it turns out,
Yeah,
but it's fun. It's fun.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good share. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. And where can people connect with you if they want to reach out to you and hit you up? Where can they find you?
Sure. Well, I'm obviously on LinkedIn. Livara has a presence on LinkedIn, and feel free to follow us there as well. Those are probably the two. That's my main social media channel, and so those are probably the two best ways to find us and to find me.
All right, you heard it, folks. LinkedIn is the best way to connect. And once again, their website is livarahealth.com. We'll put in the show notes as well. And Rob, thanks once again. It's been great having this conversation and sharing your journey and your professional experiences. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thank you. Appreciate it.